Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees. Here are today's top stories. Britons can't wait for a good summer as the lockdown easing plan brings hope. With family holidays allowed in 7 weeks, bookings are surging now. And unemployment in the UK rises to its highest point in 5 years. Many hope for a summer without restrictions after the Prime Minister announced his roadmap out of lockdown. NTD's Eddie Atkin has more.
The Prime Minister's plan says life will mostly go back to normal by June 21st at the earliest.
It's good news. It's about time, and let's hope that we don't go back after this.
I think this slightly more gentler approach going forward means hopefully we can all have a nice summer.
So just want to be patient and, hopefully we have a nice summer.
Johnson's roadmap says the way to freedom will happen in 4 stages. Stage 1 will start from March the 8th and has 2 parts. First, all schools and colleges in England will reopen. 2 people from different households can meet outside. Then, from March 29th, people can meet outside either with one other household or within the rule of 6. The stay-at-home rule will end, but people should stay local as much as possible. Stage 2 starts from April 12th, and non-essential shops and outdoor pubs and restaurants will reopen. So will gyms, hairdressers and beauty salons. UK domestic holidays will be permitted. In 3 stages starting from May 17th, people can meet in groups of up to 30 outdoors, and 6 people or 2 households can meet indoors. Pubs and restaurants will be allowed to seat customers indoors. Stage 4, starting from June 21st, would remove all legal limits on social contact. Johnson says this roadmap should be cautious but also irreversible, and at every stage the government will be led by data, not dates.
We're setting out on what I hope and believe is a one-way road to freedom, and this journey is made possible by the pace of the vaccination programme.
So far, nearly 18 million Britons, over a quarter of the population, have received a first dose. The government aims for everyone over 50 to get a jab by the end of April and all adults by the end of July. Eddie Aiken, NTD News.
In England, is the experience of sea air and sand between the toes around the corner? As the UK government proposes to ease measures, Neil Woodrow tells us more.
The government says just 7 weeks away, all being well with the data, people can once again enjoy a family holiday. Before setting off, you should be able to get your hair done and get away from those familiar 4 walls, as some holiday lets can reopen. The golden rules are each unit is limited to 1 household with no shared facilities. The chair of the Professional Association of Self-Caterers says most bookings for that time period are normally 2 households, a young family with the grandparents.
When those people come down on the 12th of April for that 5-week period, there'll be very little for them to be able to do, because pubs and restaurants are only allowed to do outside service, and most visitor attractions and events will still be closed. So that period, 12th of April to mid-May, is a bit of a challenge to make sure that the guest experience is a good one.
But he is pleased and sees it as a big positive step forward.
So really we see the big reopening date as mid-May, not mid-April, because that's when the visitor economy will be opening up.
The association has around 1,000 paying members, which represents over 40,000 self-catering properties in the United Kingdom. Alistair also runs his own self-catering let, and they have many customer calls at the moment.
Yes, all the calls so far today and last night are cancellations. Because the groups or dates are either in lockdown or the group size would not be compliant.
They then need to quickly remarket the new vacancies. It's not so straightforward, as the property owner needs to establish the compliance of the guests within the rules.
Because you kind of have to turn into the secret police. You have to find out how many they are, and these are not questions that you'd really worry about before. We would never have asked guests, how many households they were from.
Most businesses will still be operating under restrictions until mid-June. Alistair Handyside's hope is that in Monday's budget, the Chancellor will be extending support to the sector, particularly in keeping the VAT rate on holidays to 5% to the end of the year. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Greece's tourism minister is urging the EU to roll out vaccine passports. He says it's important to push and plan ahead. NTD's El Rhodes has the details.
Greek Tourist Minister Harry Theokoris is urging the EU to take up a vaccine passport. He says too many EU countries are focused on the present, but we must plan ahead. Greece floated the idea last month, but the bloc is divided and it's expected Greece will push the issue in the EU summit this Thursday. Greece makes 20% of its GDP from the tourism industry, and the impact of the pandemic has been felt hard in an economy that still hasn't recovered from the 2008 financial crisis. Last year, hotel and accommodation revenue was down 2/3. Greece isn't happy that the UK is advising against international travel. UK tourists travelling to Greece make up a slim second place in terms of international visitors, with the largest amount coming from Germany. In 2018, this was 4.4 million visits. One fear is that vaccine passports will stoke public anger and raise discrimination issues. But Greece's travel minister says that vaccines would not be mandatory for travel, but would mean you wouldn't need to take a CCP virus test. Similarly, the International Air Transport Association says its digital COVID travel pass will be ready within weeks. The app will be out on iOS and Android phones and logs vaccines and CCP virus tests. It's currently being tested by various airlines. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
The Philippines will let thousands of its nurses take up jobs in Britain and Germany if the two countries agree to donate CCP virus vaccines. The Philippines limits the number of medical workers leaving the country to 5,000 a year. A senior official from its Labour Ministry says the country is open to lifting the cap in exchange for vaccines. The country has not yet started its campaign to vaccinate 70 million adults. It hopes to secure in total 148 million doses of vaccines. Filipino nurses are fighting to lift the deployment ban to escape poor working conditions and low pay at home. Government data shows in 2019, almost 17,000 Filipino nurses signed overseas work contracts. Britain's jobless rate rose to 5.1% in the last 3 months of 2020, its highest in nearly 5 years. Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, looks set to extend the job support scheme next week. Eddie Atkin has more.
The Office for National Statistics said 1.74 million people were unemployed in the October to December period, up more than 450,000 from the same quarter in 2019. The number of job vacancies in the 3 months to January were 26% lower than a year ago. Unemployment has been suppressed by the government's job retention scheme, which is supporting about 1 in 5 employees. The programme will cost an estimated £70 billion by its scheduled expiry date of April 30th.
What's clear is right now many families and businesses are experiencing hardship. That's why we've put in place a comprehensive plan for jobs to support people through this crisis, and we will set out the next stage of our economic response at our budget in early March.
After Tuesday's unemployment data, Sunak is preparing for next week's budget, which is expected to set out further plans to help the labour market. Eddie Aitken, NTD News, London.
It is revealed the government planned to ease lockdown before Easter, but after scientists warned it could lead to extra 55,000 deaths, the plan was axed. NTD's Patrick Hayden brings us more.
According to The Telegraph, under initial plan, the outdoor pubs and restaurants and non-essential shops would reopen for the Easter bank holiday weekend. That's April 2nd, but now it is delayed until April 12th. Papers released by the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, or SAGE, shows that scientists modelled a range of scenarios, including reopening of outdoor pubs and restaurants before Easter. Scientists from Imperial College of London say the timetable could mean an extra 55,000 deaths. England's Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty talks about the modelling and emphasises the country wants certainty, not urgency.
Even with these quite careful one-at-a-time measures, there will at some point be a surge of cases, and R is going to creep closer to 1.
So in the lockdown easing plan announced on Monday, only a few elements of the initial plans would go ahead on March 29, including the rule of 6 or 2 households outside and the return of outdoor sport. Marianne Leatham, NTD News.
Merseyside police issue a clarification over a poster they displayed, claiming being offensive is an offence. The billboard was displayed on Saturday in the Wirral and also appeared on a police website. This drew criticism and caused some confusion. Superintendent Martin L. said in a statement, "We would like to clarify that being offensive is not in itself an offence." He added the poster was to encourage people to report hate crime. Although well-intentioned, it was incorrect, and we apologise for any confusion this may have caused. The Prime Minister confirms beer gardens could reopen from mid-April. Al fresco dining and drinking might be a normal sight this summer. NTD's Jen Worrell has the details.
A pint in a pub garden might not be too far off. The Prime Minister on Monday, setting out the roadmap out of lockdown, says restaurant and pub gardens could serve customers outdoors from April 12th. People running pubs face limited numbers, and for those with gardens, they also face an element beyond anyone's control: the weather.
So you're looking at 40% capacity if the weather's good, and none if it isn't. You still got everything to pay, you've still got everyone to pay, but you're just praying for sunshine.
Hopes are high for an April as sunny as last year's. The British Beer and Pub Association warns about 29,000 pubs won't be able to open then because they don't have any outdoor space or they won't be commercially sustainable. It estimates this will cost the industry £1.5 billion. Venues will be allowed customers indoors from May 17th at the earliest. Many who have outdoor seating areas will be hoping for a sunny April. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
Up next, Facebook will restore Australian news pages after reaching a deal with the government. That and more when we return. Australian news will be back on Facebook. That's after the tech giant and the Australian government reached a deal. NTD's El Rhodes has the story.
Facebook said it will restore Australian news pages. This comes after reaching an agreement with the government over a proposed media law.
Well, Facebook has refriended Australia, and Australian news will be restored to the Facebook platform. And Facebook has committed to entering into good faith negotiations with Australian news media businesses in seeking to reach agreements to pay for content.
Last week, without warning, Facebook banned users from accessing and sharing Australian news content, and it caused a global stir, not least since the ban was worldwide. The law is intended to protect struggling journalism by making tech sites pay for content. Facebook had objected to the idea of forced negotiations. Changes to the law now include a 2-month mediation period. Sydney residents show mixed reactions to Facebook's announcement.
It didn't allow me to interact and be able to share the news with other people. It's actually great for it to be back because I can actually share posts with my friends.
I think Facebook, well, in my view, might have misjudged this one, and I think the market's going to respond pretty strongly with competing places to get news.
The Australian government says it sees its legislation to be world-leading. Other countries, including the UK, are considering a similar law. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
Google is taking a swing at former US President Trump through YouTube. It's removed a newly recorded interview with the former president from its platform.
YouTube says the February 17th interview was removed for violating the site's community guidelines. That's according to what a Newsmax spokesperson told the Epoch Times. A YouTube spokesperson also confirmed those details. telling the Epoch Times the video was taken down in accordance with its presidential election integrity policy, adding that the site enforces those guidelines, quote, regardless of speaker and without regard to political viewpoints. The California-based company says the policies aim to prevent spam, scams, and deceptive practices. One of the latest was put in place last year amid election controversy. YouTube said the new policy would remove content that, quote, misleads people by alleging that widespread fraud or errors changed the outcome of the 2020 U.S. presidential election. During the Newsmax interview, Trump alleged he won the 2020 election, among other assertions. Newsmax later posted a video of host Greg Kelly who interviewed Trump. That video summarizes and plays portions of the Trump interview. It remains live on YouTube.
And the former president responded to the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on his taxes. The court ruled to allow a New York prosecutor to obtain his tax returns from up to 10 years ago. Donald Trump's calling the move just another political attack against him. NTD's Grace Coulter has more.
Trump responded to the ruling saying that the officials investigating him are participating in a continuation of the greatest political witch hunt in the history of our country, and says this is something that has never happened to a president before. He says the investigation into him is Democrat-inspired in a totally Democrat location. Other New York Democrats like Attorney General Letitia James have previously launched probes or taken action against Trump or his businesses, arguing he's broken the law. Trump called the targeting part of a new phenomenon of headhunting prosecutors and attorneys general, who he alleged try to take down their political opponents using the law as a weapon. He says the phenomenon is a threat to the very foundation of our liberty, and that is what's done in third world countries. Trump says that he will fight on as he has over the last 5 years, despite all of the election crimes committed against him, and that he will win. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Investigators find damage to a fan blade on a Boeing 777 engine that failed on a U.S. flight at the weekend. The PW4000 is a larger version of the cargo plane that dropped engine parts shortly after takeoff on Saturday from Maastricht Airport in the Netherlands.
A preliminary assessment has found signs of metal fatigue on the engine that failed on a United Airlines Boeing 777 flight at the weekend.
Hear it?
Yeah. The engine failed with a loud bang 4 minutes after takeoff from Denver. The National Transport Safety Board have been looking at damage to a fan blade. The chairman of the U.S. Air Accident Investigator told reporters it remains unclear whether the incident is consistent with an engine failure on a different Hawaiian-bound United flight in February 2018. That failure was attributed to a fatigue fracture in a fan blade. The engine that failed shed parts over a Denver suburb. The Pratt & Whitney engine, the PW4000, is used on 128 planes, or less than 10% of the global fleet.
Up next, UK's secondary school students will need to wear face masks in class after schools reopen. Find out more when we return. UK primary school children will return to school from March the 8th, with secondary school children returning in phases from that date. But secondary school children will need to wear face masks indoors if they can't maintain 2-meter social distancing. NTD's Joy Dogood brings us the story.
Apart from mask wearing, secondary school children will be offered regular voluntary tests for COVID-19 at school and at home. If found positive, they must self-isolate. The new advice comes as part of the roadmap out of lockdown plans set out by the government on Monday. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, returning to school is safe, but the additional testing and mask-wearing measures would be in place for the rest of this term to offer even greater reassurance. Deaf charities have criticised the need to wear masks in the classroom, saying if lip-reading children can't understand their teachers, it will have a negative impact on their education. Joy Dogood, NTD News.
Imagine a child feeling lonely at the hospital when suddenly his favourite superheroes appear at the window. An idea put into action in Austria to bring a smile to children's faces. NTD's Adi Atkin has more.
Hanging upside down from the roof of the building, Vienna Police Special Forces come clad as Spider-Man and his superhero friends. It's a special treat for seriously ill children.
We had a visit from Vienna Police Special Forces, but they did not just come as police officers. They came as superheroes who abseiled themselves from different spots of St. Anna Children's Hospital.
The children aren't able to have their usual number of visitors due to restrictions placed under the pandemic.
So the children had the chance to watch from inside their hospital rooms.
Superheroes as they are, they're still required to get tested for the virus. The hospital aiming to make sure the stunt is completely safe.
It was very important to us that everybody who was here today and who participated was tested, and the test offer was widely used.
Besides the very cool performance, the local police brass band entertains the onlookers with songs, making it hard to miss the superheroes' visit. Some even come out to enjoy a photo session with their new idols. Eddie Aiken, NTD News.
A 14-year-old girl from Australia spent hours behind her computer, watching films or social media, you might think. Actually, she's running her own business that she started 3 years before. NTD's Trevor Piper tells us her story.
Business owner is not a title many 14-year-olds can claim, but Tia Devo wears it with pride.
I was not expecting all of this to just happen.
Tia and Belle is a venture that took off when she was only 11 years old. Now, in a few short years, her idea has blossomed into a successful business. It started as a native-themed clothing line, but quickly expanded into accessories like candles. And it's a passion with a purpose. The brand isn't just about profit, it's about representing Indigenous culture.
I think it's really good because I'm also spreading a lot of valuable information about Indigenous people.
She says she draws inspiration from her heritage, expressing it through clothing and homewares. But as always, when there's a gain, there is loss too.
It can be pretty crazy sometimes because it's sometimes I'll have to do stuff to help out with the business, so I can't really just go hang out with my friends.
Since the beginning, she's received support from her father for her online shop.
I didn't really think that I'd be doing this type of support with respect to her owning a business at the age of 11.
The young entrepreneur has a bright future ahead as she continues to build her brand. Trevor Piper, NTD News.
And people in Finland keen to avoid gyms this winter have found a new way to keep fit. Running in the snow with no training shoes, just thick woolen socks. Joy Dogood has more.
Finland has seen particularly heavy snowfall this year, but these avid barefoot runners can't get enough of it.
This is traditional Finnish crazy stuff. I think we all agree. Yeah. And it's really the happiness side. I mean, it's very good sports, strong exercise and everything, but it really is the happiness.
Barefoot running is popular in the warmer months of the year. Running in socks through heavy snow, now about half a metre deep in many places, takes this to the next level. Whether done in light or deep snow, this helicopter pilot says it's good for the feet.
Ooh, careful! The feeling afterwards is just great. You have had good foot massage and everything, and you feel maybe a little warmth and really the freedom because your feet are not tight package. 2 layer and then you have still 1 more layer.
He recommends wearing at least 2, preferably 3 pairs of woolen socks. Traditionally, Finns like to take a sauna in winter, then run through the snow to jump into an ice-cold lake. But this runner says the new sport in socks is catching on.
There's so many people actually trying once and then quite many of them want to try again and again.
The group meet in Nuuksio National Park, 35 kilometres from the capital. They say it's the perfect way to beat the winter blues. Joy Dogood, NTD News.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees.